Hello and welcome to episode 5 of Inclusion Unscripted from the team here at Inclusion in Leadership, inclusioninleadership.com. I'm Simon Haig and I'm joined by my partners Wei Eng, Nigel Sonariwo and Elizabeth Suarez. I'm here actually in Dubai right now and the team are over in the States. We're joined by a wonderful guest. She's currently in Ireland, so halfway between Dubai and the States, by the name of Furkan Karayel. Furkan, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you very much. How are you?
It's great to meet you. No, we're all well. And so to explain, Furkan is author, if you can, I don't know whether you want to hold it up, Furkan, of an amazing new book, which I've actually read, called Inclusive Intelligence. You're a speaker, a lecturer, a multi-award winning global diversity inclusion leader. You're also an ex-software engineer as well, which we add at the end there. So let's talk about, it's great to see you. Let's talk about the book first of all. You've just released this book. Tell us what inclusive intelligence is.
Yeah. First of all, thank you so much for the kind invitation, Simon. And hello and welcome, everyone. So in terms of the book, so let me define inclusive intelligence because people are all wondering what is inclusive intelligence. Inclusive intelligence, in a nutshell, is normalizing inclusion. It's making inclusion on a day-to-day basis that it's going to be normal for all of us. And on the other side, if we deep dive into inclusive intelligence, it's basically normalizing inclusion, opening up consciously to different views, and leading with authenticity. And the book actually came out as a result of my work with different leaders globally. And what we have seen, some leaders were naturally so good at inclusion. And these leaders were doing different jobs and they were different in different locations and they were coming from very different backgrounds. But we have seen a pattern in those leaders, what made them inclusive leaders. And these were the 6 skills: self-awareness, empathy, engagement, cultural wisdom, accountability, and commitment. So in each chapter, we talk about these skills and I give examples from different leaders' implementation of inclusion. And also I inject my own authentic stories, working as a software engineer for 10 years in different organizations in Ireland. And so this is how it came out.
That's wonderful, wonderful. Actually, I mean, Elizabeth, I don't know whether you want to just jump in now because you and Furkan are balancing the team here. Any comments, Elizabeth, from your end before we go on?
Yes, perfect. Hi, Furkan. Thank you for joining us. And I came from a generation that I would call myself the me, myself, and I syndrome, meaning that I was always the only female at the decision-making table. I was always the only female in the management ranks. And then add to that I'm a Latina, in which English is a second language. So Spanish is my first language, culture of Latin America. So how were you able, and I'm also an engineer, chemical engineer. So what was 1 or 2 things you learned from being a software engineer in order to be able to be part of that inclusion aspect?
Yeah. So coming from that, background, what I learned is not to accept things as it is, but to question more in deep dive into why the things are happening. That what made me start my own company, and that's how the book came out. So I start to question about like why don't I don't see leaders who look like me in the leadership positions of big tech companies. And I was at first looking at it from my, for my environment. And then what I find out that this wasn't an issue with one organization or a society or a country, but it was a global issue. And I start to question why, because there are so many talented women out there from very different backgrounds. But then why the number of those leaders are not appearing on the top level? So that's, I think, questioning things and not accepting the things as it is. And most of the workplaces are designed for men. We see that every single day. And then I start to question why and that's how it came out.
I'm glad that you're bringing this topic to light and also looking at it from a female perspective. So I appreciate all the work you've done.
Yeah, and if you Google again, how many leadership book authors are female today? I don't know. You only see a handful of them. Like
Totally.
there are really so many talented women out there, but why we only know the names from, especially for leadership books that are only male. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
You're
Well,
welcome.
there's one more. There's you now for a cancer. So that's wonderful. And Nigel, before I go on to talk about inclusion in Ireland, did you have any comments or observations for Furkan?
No, I think this is fascinating. We've all heard so much about you, and it's just great to meet you and actually hear, from your perspective, the issues of inclusion. I was just wondering, in terms of the work environment, what has been your experience in terms of being included in the workplace? What's that experience been like?
Do you mean when I was working previously,
right.
or
Working
yeah,
previously? Yes, correct.
working previously? So, working previously, my own experiences was like, first of all, the bias against working in male-dominated environment was something that, as an introverted person, as a non-native English, speaker, and I'm naturally a shy woman as well, and I always like hide. I didn't hide, but I was very hesitant to share my view in the meetings. And when I've seen the insights about in the male dominated environments, as a research shows that actually almost 70% of women who didn't speak up much in the meetings, and their ideas were not accepted until a man repeats their ideas in the meeting. And then it made me feel like, again, the things that I was struggling wasn't only my issue, it was an issue for so many people. It didn't really matter what kind of background they had. Maybe they are introverted, so they felt the same thing. So I think when we look at it from a higher perspective, from a bigger picture, we see that the more we talk about it, we see that, yes, there are so many people who might have felt the same way as we did. And then what we can do today to include those voices we haven't heard before. So I think, adding to the picture that sometimes I was the only woman in the team, sometimes I was the only one from a different background and everything, adding the introversion and everything. So it's I think I sometimes felt a bit like, why these workplaces don't make us feel more belong, why we are not seen as like visible, we are not invisible, we are there, but why there are not more leaders who recognize us and give the voice to us as well. And so these are some of my experiences.
Thank you.
Thanks, Furkan. So, in terms of Ireland, what would you say? Because Ireland has come a long way, obviously, in the last 30 years from a lot of perspectives, but there are still challenges. What would you say are the biggest challenges to inclusion in Ireland in 2022?
Yeah, I have observed that change in the society as well, Simon, because I have been living in Ireland for 17 years. I was living in the middle of the country in Athlone, and I lived there for 8 years. So I could see and observe the transition in the society and also in the workplaces. So what I often see that people have mostly very good intentions. They said, okay, diversity and inclusion, we would like to include more people, we would like to give voices to other people. The biggest problem is they don't know how to do it. They either think of, oh, it's a big learning, it's something that we don't have a budget for that, or like we don't know how inclusion looks like. We want to do it, but we don't know how. and we don't know if we need anything, if we need a tool, or if we need an external resource. They are struggling more in the how part. Even questioning that is good, but I think focusing on more action and picturing what inclusion looks like, because our teams are all authentic, we are all like a DNA, we are all different, but identifying what inclusion looks like for our team will have a different definition than another team. So maybe starting from there and bringing more action with simple actions could be a good starting point. And I always give this example: if you are a pilot and you make 1 degree change, and then by time you end up in a completely different destination. So it's the matter of starting now, not waiting, not procrastinating, and then making that change. Doesn't matter how small it is, and then it will end up in a better destination, hopefully.
I think that's a great answer, Furkan. Having worked in large corporates, I think they have this tendency that I think there's almost this self-importance tendency, right? That the senior executives seem to sort of think that we're so important that this cannot be as simple as making a 1 degree turn, right? That's my experience. And that forget about the 1 degree turn. Let's just put this on the long finger because it's complicated, and we need to pay a fortune for external consultants to come out with amazing programs, and they pay a fortune. And then they land on the desk and they realize, well, it's all too complicated, so nothing gets done. So I love the way you talk about that 1 degree. And can you repeat those 6 areas? You mentioned this, which I've read, the 6 key areas. If every organization worked on each of those 6 areas 1 degree, just repeat those 6 areas for Can.
Sure. Self-awareness, empathy, engagement, cultural wisdom, accountability, and commitment. And I would like to mention last thing as well, Simon, that research shows that when leaders are not investing into inclusion, then the work that they have put together to bring a diverse team together, the performance actually doesn't result in good performance. So the understanding of leaders in inclusion makes a huge difference in diverse inclusion, bringing that diverse inclusion culture to teams, to organizations, and to societies as well. And we definitely need those enablers. And I give that example from an aircraft as well. Imagine you have so many different features in front of you. You're a pilot, and so you have the buttons and everything. So without a pilot, we can't go from A to B. So we need a pilot. So whatever the feature in front of you becomes irrelevant from that point. We need those enablers that will enable diverse and inclusion benefits. So this is very important.
Oh, that's wonderful. Wei has been waiting very patiently. I know he's forensically analyzing all of this. Wei, over to you.
No, I think the conversation has taken a life of its own. I think you brought up some excellent points. That 1 degree of proposed change that results in a different destination resonates tremendously. So I guess the question is, how do you propose that 1 degree of change? How do you propose a benefit from an inclusive environment and building of actually proposing the benefits of inclusion to get that 1 degree of change? I'd like to kind of get your perspective on that.
Yeah. Well, everyone's agenda is different. For sales managers, that means more sales. Yeah. So you need to make that language, let them understand that language as well. So it turns out to better performance, better sales, better revenue. So, and what they can do is only try. So if they try, if they see the benefits in the long term, there's no short, overnight success in these things, in behavioral changes, and accepting that these changes will take time. But letting them try, this will result better in your performance, in your, bottom line and everything, is something I always like to talk as well.
So what you're saying is proposing the initiative to attempt to move that 1 degree to shift to a new destination. And I absolutely agree with that. I just want to make sure that we are in the same place on that. So excellent.
Thank you, Ray.
So Furkan, in the last couple of minutes, is there another book? Is this it? Or I mean, I could imagine you could write a book on each of those 6 areas. What are the plans going forward?
I don't have any plan for another book yet because I'm taking my time to enjoy this, because it took me years to put these things, into its place. So at the moment, I am working on spreading out the message on inclusive intelligence, and receive some feedback and implementation. So I'm really enjoying that at the moment, because almost every day I receive another email message saying that how these principles changed teams, how it changed their perspective, or how my story resonated with theirs, or how it opened a new perspective that it wasn't visible to those leaders. So at the moment, it's time to, I think, pause and receive all these feedbacks, and then I definitely have different ideas for the second book, which I will consider later on.
So
I did have a follow-up question for you, Furkan. Did I hear correctly? Did you say you work for yourself now? Your own business?
Yes. Yeah.
Could you tell us about that? Is it related to inclusion?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. My company is called Diverse In, and it's all about diverse and inclusion, bringing action-oriented diverse and inclusion in the workplace.
So that's fascinating. So I have one more question, and then Simon, I'll hand it over to you and you can take it from there. So you talk about moving like a pilot, moving it by 1 degree, or you talk about the diverse in that you're part of, like making it an action. So for those leaders that are watching us, what is one thing they can do? Just one thing in a sentence or less that they can do in order to make move towards an inclusive environment.
Yeah. Break your own biases. That is the first thing I can do, because we are all human beings. We will have our own biases, but recognizing that and break consciously to those biases is something we can all start doing from today.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Simon, I'll leave it over to you.
I think that's powerful, Furkan. There's a term that I use, and I've heard and I use now quite a lot, and that is the most dangerous thing is contempt prior to investigation, which is a long-winded way of saying be very careful about being locked into your biases, because most of the time you're going to be wrong, because you're just locked into your head, and there's a whole world out there, and there's 8 billion people. Well, even if you don't like somebody, we're all equal. 8 billion people on this planet, this tiny little planet, we're all equal. Even the people you struggle to respect, and so get out of your head, get over that contempt prior to investigation, exactly as you said, Furkan. So that's wonderful. How do people connect with you? How do people connect with you and find out more about? Show us the book again, if you don't mind.
Sure. So you can connect me on LinkedIn. I would really appreciate that. And for more information about me, furkankarayel.com, which is my name and surname together.com. You can find everything about it. And for my book, you can order on Amazon, and you can find it everywhere, I think.
That's wonderful. Thanks so much for your time. And for the viewers out there, we're going to continue this rolling series every couple of weeks. We encourage anybody to get involved. Ask questions, send us questions and comments. I know a lot of these kind of load after the live stream. And as I said, we're going to keep doing this. And inclusion unscripted is just that. We want to kind of just provoke thought and get people really thinking about this from various different angles. And our URL is inclusioninleadership.com. Thanks so much, Furkan. It's wonderful. And thanks, everybody, again. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you.
Bye. Bye.